How does it feel to be a loser? My son-in-law chuckled across the dinner table, his voice dripping with mockery. Everyone laughed except me. My daughter, Vanessa, didn't even look up from her glass of wine. She let the words hang in the air, sharp and humiliating, while the silverware clinked against fine china. I smiled faintly, lifting the spoon of lukewarm soup to my lips. On the outside, I looked calm, maybe even defeated. But inside, a storm was brewing. They thought I was old, weak, powerless. What they didn't know was that I carried a secret one that could turn their smug laughter into silence. That night at dinner, as their chuckles echoed around me, I realized something. This was not the end of my story. Dinner was just the beginning. My name is Margaret, and I am 67 years old. I live in the small guest house behind my daughter Vanessa's grand mansion, though live may be too generous a word. It feels more like existing in the shadow of the life I helped her build. The guest house is modest. One narrow bedroom, a creaky wooden floor, and a window that looks out onto the driveway where Craig's sleek black Tesla hums quietly after his late-night returns. At night, the faint glow of their chandelier spills through the big glass windows of the main house, lighting up the laughter and clinking wine glasses I'm never invited to join. My hair, once chestnut brown, has turned a soft silver, curling gently around my face. I have a slim frame, the kind that comes not from luxury diets but from years of skipping meals so my daughter would never have to. My eyes tired, lined with age, once carried the spark of a woman who believed love and sacrifice were enough. Now, they often stare blankly at the reflection of a woman I barely recognize in the bathroom mirror, lit only by the flickering bulb above the sink. I wasn't always invisible. Years ago, I was a nurse. I worked long, endless shifts in a crowded hospital downtown, patching up broken bodies and soothing frightened souls. When my husband Daniel died suddenly of a heart attack, I was left alone with a little girl and a mountain of bills. Everyone said I should remarry, but I couldn't. Vanessa needed me whole, not divided. So, I sold our family home in the suburbs, cashed out my small pension, and used every penny to send her to college. While other mothers bought new clothes at Macy's or took vacations to Florida, I patched my uniforms and worked double shifts. I told myself it was worth it, that one day she'd look at me and see the mother who gave her everything. Vanessa grew into a striking woman, tall, poised, with sleek chestnut hair she always kept perfectly styled. She had her father's strong jawline and my dark eyes, though hers often held a coldness mine never did. She was ambitious, determined, and unwilling to let her modest beginnings define her. I admired that, at first, but ambition has a way of erasing gratitude. When she married Craig, I thought it was the beginning of a beautiful new chapter for her. Craig, at 38, is tall, broad-shouldered, with neatly combed dark hair and a dazzling smile that masks the arrogance lurking underneath. He is the CEO of a successful startup, the kind of man who measures worth by the shine of his Rolex and the model year of his car. At first, he was polite, even charming to me. I should have known it wouldn't last. Now, I am tolerated more than welcomed. They say I should be grateful. Grateful for the guest house out back. Grateful for the scraps of their attention. Grateful they let me stay close. But the truth is, I gave up everything so Vanessa could stand where she does today. Sometimes, late at night, as the streetlights hum outside and the sound of distant sirens drifts in from the freeway, I hear their house alive with music and laughter. My small room feels colder then, the heater rattling in protest, and I wonder if she even remembers. One evening, as I folded the laundry they left for me, shirts that weren't mine, dresses that weren't mine, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. My hands, once strong from years of nursing, were now worn and trembling. My back ached from bending over, yet no one noticed. I whispered softly, "It was all for you, Vanessa." but the silence that followed felt heavier than any words of gratitude could have lifted. Little did they know, the woman they had come to dismiss as weak still had chapters left to write. And one day soon, they would regret every smirk, every whispered insult, every careless laugh at my expense. Because a mother's love may be patient, but it is not blind forever. They never called me cruel names at first. That would have been too obvious, too unrefined for a couple like Craig and Vanessa. No, what they offered me was something far sharper, kindness wrapped in quiet disdain. I remember one Sunday evening. Craig was slouched on the leather recliner in their sprawling living room, the massive flat screen glowing with an NFL game. A can of Bud Light sweated in his hand, and the faint smell of buffalo wings lingered in the air. He didn't look at me when he spoke. "Margaret, there are some leftovers in the fridge. Don't wait too long, though we don't really eat reheated food." His voice was casual, almost friendly, but the words landed like stones. Leftovers. For me, not generosity remnants. I forced a smile. "Thank you, Craig." He nodded, eyes fixed on the screen, already forgetting he'd spoken. To him, I was like the hum of the fridge in the background, there, but not worth noticing. Vanessa, meanwhile, was in the foyer, standing in front of the tall antique mirror Craig had bought from an auction. She was smoothing the strap of her designer gown, a sleek emerald dress that shimmered under the crystal chandelier. A diamond necklace glittered at her throat. "Mom," she said, not turning, "could you keep the guest house curtains closed during the day? The gardener mentioned they look a little shabby from the main house." Her tone was light, almost musical, as though she were suggesting a new recipe. She clipped on her earrings, smiled faintly at her own reflection, and adjusted a loose strand of hair. I nodded quickly, the laundry basket heavy in my arms. "Of course, honey." She didn't hear me. She was already reaching for her clutch bag, ready for another charity gala. As I stepped back toward the guest house, I could see Craig through the wide glass doors, cheering at the game. Vanessa leaned down to kiss his cheek, their world glowing under warm lights and expensive art pieces. My world waited in the shadows, a cold room where the heater rattled louder than my own heartbeat. That night, I heated the so-called leftovers in the tiny microwave that took ages to hum to life. The meatloaf was dry, the potatoes rubbery, but I ate quietly while the muffled sounds of laughter and clinking glasses drifted from the main house. Through the thin guest house walls, I could still hear the freeway in the distance, cars rushing past, each one a reminder that life outside these walls kept moving even if mine felt stuck. Lying in bed later, I pulled the thin blanket up to my chin. The heater groaned as if exhausted from keeping me alive. I stared at the cracked ceiling, listening to the faint echo of the football game Craig still hadn't turned off. It wasn't cruelty. Not yet, but I knew the truth. In their world of champagne and chandeliers, I was already fading into the background. An afterthought. I whispered into the darkness, "Is this what I worked my whole life for?" The only answer was the distant cheer of a touchdown from Craig's television. Friday evenings in Vanessa's house always carried the same rhythm. Music, laughter, and the steady stream of luxury cars pulling into the driveway. That night, they were hosting another of their dinner parties. From my window in the guest house, I watched as the valet guided a Porsche into place, headlights sweeping across the manicured lawn. I had no intention of stepping inside, but Vanessa appeared at my door just as I was folding towels, her perfume expensive. Sharp drifted in before her words did. "Mom, could you help set the table? But please, once the guests arrive, just head back. You know how people talk." How people talk. The implication stung more than if she'd said it outright. "You embarrass me." Still, I nodded. "Of course, honey." The dining room was a showroom that evening. The walnut table gleamed under a chandelier dripping with crystals. Place cards marked every seat. The smell of roasted duck and truffle oil floated from the kitchen. I laid the napkins carefully, my hands trembling slightly as I straightened the silverware. By the time the guests arrived, I had slipped into the kitchen, ready to disappear. But Craig's voice found me. "Margaret," he boomed, grinning as he guided a man in a tailored suit toward me. "Gentlemen, ladies, meet Margaret, our live-in help." Polite laughter circled the table. A woman with pearls leaned in, whispering loud enough for me to hear. "Oh, how thoughtful. Not everyone provides staff these days." Craig smirked, lifting his champagne glass. "We're lucky. She keeps things tidy. Curtains, laundry, you name it." Vanessa said nothing. She adjusted her diamond bracelet and smiled as if it were a compliment. My cheeks burned. I stammered, I only helped set the table." Craig's grin widened. "See? Humble too. We really are blessed." The laughter that followed wasn't cruel in tone, but it cut deeper than any insult. I wasn't a mother. I wasn't family. I was a novelty, something to joke about between bites of foie gras. I forced a smile, nodding as though I agreed. But my hands shook so badly, I had to clutch the counter. Later, when the party ended and the dishwasher hummed in the background, I returned to the guest house. From their windows, I could see the last of the guests hugging Vanessa goodbye. The house glowed with warmth and wine, while my room waited cold and silent. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at my reflection in the windowpane. They hadn't just made me invisible, they had rewritten me. From a mother into a servant. And somewhere deep inside, a quiet flame flickered. They thought they'd silenced me. But a storm was coming. The morning after the party, I woke early, though I hadn't slept much. The laughter from the night before still echoed in my ears, tangled with the clinking of glasses and Craig's smug voice. I stepped out to bring in the laundry I had folded the night before. The air smelled faintly of roses from the garden I had tended for years, though no one ever thanked me for it. As I carried the basket past the main house, I heard Vanessa's voice. She was in the kitchen with Craig, her tone sharp, impatient. "She lingers too much, Craig. Did you see how awkward it was last night?" People were whispering. "I can't keep explaining why she's always around." Craig's reply was casual, dismissive. "I know. But what can we do? It's not like she has anywhere else to go." Vanessa sighed. "Maybe it's time we suggest, an assisted living place. It'd look better. And honestly, I need more space. This isn't working anymore." The basket slipped from my hands, a towel falling onto the gravel. My heart pounded in my chest. They weren't just embarrassed by me. They wanted me gone. I backed away, but Craig's voice carried through the open window, louder now. "She should be grateful, Vanessa. We've given her more than enough. She eats our food, lives on our property. What else does she want? She acts like we owe her something." Vanessa's laugh was soft, almost cruel. "She forgets her place." Her place. The words burned. That afternoon, I tried to busy myself in the guest house, but the silence felt heavier than ever. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, judged, pushed closer to the edge of invisibility. By evening, Vanessa knocked on my door. She stood there in a tailored pantsuit, arms crossed, her expression cool. "Mom, Craig and I have been talking. Maybe it's time you considered other options. There's a wonderful facility near downtown. They'd take good care of you." I stared at her, my throat tight. "Vanessa, I gave up everything for you. I sold our home. I worked nights, skipped meals so you could eat. And now you want to send me away?" Her face didn't soften. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. You'll have friends your own age there, activities. It'll be good for you." Good for me. What she meant was, good for her. Tears stung my eyes, but I forced them back. I would not give her the satisfaction of seeing me break. That night, as I lay in the cold guest house, the faint glow of their mansion spilling through the curtains I'd been told to keep closed, something shifted inside me. I realized they hadn't just taken my dignity. They were trying to erase me. but I would not be erased. A storm was no longer coming. It had already begun. I left the guest house early that Sunday morning, before Craig and Vanessa were awake. The streets were quiet, bathed in the pale gold of sunrise. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to breathe without the weight of their voices pressing down on me. I wandered aimlessly until I found myself in a small diner tucked between a laundromat and a hardware store. The neon sign flickered, but inside, the scent of coffee and sizzling bacon wrapped around me like an old blanket. The waitress, a woman with kind eyes and gray streaks in her hair, smiled. "Morning, On. Just you today?" "Yes," I whispered, sliding into a booth. My voice felt foreign, as if it belonged to someone else. As I sipped the steaming coffee, I realized how long it had been since anyone looked at me without judgment. Around me, life was ordinary truckers in plaid shirts, a young couple sharing pancakes, a man reading the Sunday paper. No chandeliers, no sharp whispers, just people living. When I reached for my purse to pay, the waitress leaned closer. "It's on the house. You look like you needed this." Her kindness cracked something in me. Tears blurred my vision as I nodded, unable to speak. Later that week, I visited the library downtown, a place I hadn't stepped into in years. The smell of books, the hush of turning pages, filled me with a calm I hadn't known in months. I found myself drawn to a section I'd never paid much attention to before. Personal finance. Titles about wills, trusts, and investments lined the shelves. I remembered the dusty box Craig had shoved into the garage months ago, labeled with my late husband's name. Back in the guest house that evening, I searched for it. My hands trembled as I opened the box. Inside were yellowing documents, some in my husband's handwriting. A will, old bank statements, property deeds I thought had been long gone. And then I froze. There it was. A trust account I never knew about, left in my name. The numbers printed on the page made my breath hitch. My husband, God rest his soul, had left me more than I ever imagined. For the first time in years, I felt a surge of power. The next morning, I walked into a small law office downtown, clutching the papers to my chest. The lawyer, a gentleman with silver glasses, studied the documents. He looked up with a smile. "Mrs. Carter, this account is very much valid. You are the sole beneficiary. With this, you're more than secure." Secure. A word I hadn't felt in decades. That night, as I sat in the guest house, I didn't feel the walls closing in. Instead, I saw doors opening. Craig and Vanessa thought they had me cornered, thought I had nowhere to go. But they were wrong. I poured myself a cup of tea, letting the steam warm my face. The heater rattled, but it no longer sounded so pitiful. I was free, even if they didn't know it yet. For the first time in a long while, I slept peacefully. And as I drifted off, one thought burned steady in my mind. They had tried to erase me. Now, I would show them what it meant to be remembered. A storm was no longer coming. I was the storm. I didn't announce my discovery to Craig and Vanessa right away. No, that would have been too easy. Instead, I moved quietly, the way they had taught me to live unseen, unheard. Only this time, it was by choice. A week later, Vanessa breezed into the guest house without knocking, clutching her tablet. She looked irritated. "Mom, we've decided it's time. I toured the assisted living place yesterday. It's beautiful. Honestly, you'll thank us later." I smiled, an expression so calm it startled her. "That's kind of you, sweetheart, but I don't think I'll need it." She blinked. "What do you mean?" I slid a neatly folded letter across the small table. It was from the lawyer. Her eyes darted across the page, and I watched the color drain from her face. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "Your father left it for me," I said softly. "A trust account. I'm financially independent now. I won't be moving anywhere I don't choose." She stammered. Mom, we didn't know. Of course you didn't. I cut in, my voice steady. You never asked. That evening, Craig stormed in, waving the same letter. So you've been sitting on this while we've been supporting you? You think you can just— Supporting me? I interrupted. My calmness unnerved him more than any anger could. I've been eating your leftovers, sleeping in a room where the heater rattles like it's about to die. That's not support. That's charity dressed up as tolerance. He sputtered, his face red. You're ungrateful. No, I said quietly, meeting his glare. For the first time in a long time, I'm not dependent. Craig turned away, muttering curses, while Vanessa stood frozen, her bracelet glinting in the fading light. For the first time in months, I felt taller, stronger. That night, as the mansion's windows glowed and laughter floated faintly through the walls, I sat in my guest house with a cup of tea and a small smile. They thought they could erase me. Now, they would watch as I stepped back into the light. And this was only the beginning. It happened 2 weeks later. Vanessa had organized a charity brunch at their mansion, the kind where every guest came dressed in muted pastels, sipping mimosas while pretending their lives were effortless. From the guest house window, I watched valet attendants park sleek cars, Mercedes, Teslas, a Lexus convertible with the top down despite the chilly spring breeze. The driveway gleamed with money. I had no intention of attending. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. That morning, as I sorted through the last of the papers from my husband's box, I found a letter one Vanessa clearly hadn't known existed. It was addressed to me, dated the year before he passed. In it, he wrote not just of the trust account, but of the sacrifices I had made, calling me the pillar that held this family together. Tears blurred my eyes as I folded it carefully and slipped it into my purse. When I heard the laughter drifting from the main house, I knew what I had to do. Inside, the brunch glittered with polite conversation. Vanessa, flawless in a pale pink dress, floated from guest to guest. Craig close behind, shaking hands and clapping backs. I stepped through the doorway. Conversations faltered. Eyes turned. Vanessa's smile froze when she saw me. "Mom," she hissed softly, teeth clenched. "This isn't the time." I held up the letter. "I just wanted to share something my husband left for me. For us." The room fell silent. With trembling hands, I unfolded the paper and read aloud. "To my beloved Margaret, you are the heart and soul of this family. Without you, none of us would have known comfort or love. I leave you this trust, not only for your security, but because you deserve more than the world ever gave you." Gasps rippled through the guests. I lifted my gaze. He wanted me to be cared for, not hidden away, not treated as a burden. Craig's face reddened. Vanessa's lips parted in shock. A woman near the back murmured, "How beautiful." Another guest whispered, "I can't believe." Vanessa tried to snatch the letter, but I held it firm. "Don't," I said calmly, my voice carrying through the room. "You've already tried to erase me once. Not again." For a moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, someone began to clap. Another joined. And soon the room echoed with polite, supportive applause. Not for Vanessa, not for Craig, but for me. I stood taller, my hands no longer trembling. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. Craig muttered something under his breath and stormed toward the kitchen. Vanessa forced a brittle smile, but I could see the fury in her eyes. I had stripped away their perfect mask, and I wasn't finished yet. It didn't take long for whispers to spread after the charity brunch. In the weeks that followed, I noticed the shift. Fewer cars in the driveway, fewer invitations arriving in Vanessa's mailbox. Their world, once so shiny, had started to crack. One Thursday afternoon, as I returned from the library with a stack of books, I found Vanessa pacing in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear. "I don't care, Mark," she snapped. "We can't have this delay. The remodel has to finish before the gala." She froze when she saw me in the doorway. Her tone shifted instantly, sweet as honey. "Oh, Mom, I didn't hear you come in." But I saw the truth in her eyes. Panic. The next day, I scheduled a meeting with the estate lawyer again. This time, I asked him to clarify something Vanessa and Craig had hoped I would never notice: the deed to the house. My husband had written it so that my name was still on the property. Not theirs. Mine. The lawyer confirmed it gently, sliding the document toward me. "Mrs. Carter, this estate is legally yours. If you wish, you can remove the current occupants." I sat there in silence, the weight of those words sinking in. I had walked into this office weeks ago as a woman invisible. Now, I held the power to decide their future, and I knew exactly what I would do. The confrontation came on a Sunday evening. Craig sat in his leather recliner, beer in hand, watching a football game, while Vanessa scrolled through her phone on the velvet sofa. I stepped into the living room, the official document folder in my hands. "We need to talk," I said. Craig barely glanced at me. "What now? Don't tell me you've found another little surprise." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Mom, can this wait? We're busy." "No," I said firmly. "It can't." I laid the deed on the coffee table. "This house, it belongs to me, legally." For a moment, silence swallowed the room. Then Craig laughed, loud and bitter. "You're joking." I didn't flinch. "I'm not. And as of tomorrow, you'll be making other arrangements." Vanessa's phone slipped from her hand, clattering onto the hardwood. "You can't be serious," she whispered. "I'm very serious," I replied. "I gave up everything for you, and you repaid me with leftovers, locked curtains, and plans to send me away. No more." Craig shot up from his chair, face red with fury. "You can't do this to us." I met his glare without fear. "I already have." Vanessa crumbled, her perfect composure unraveling. "Mom, please, we didn't mean—" "Stop," I said, my voice soft but unshakable. "Don't call me Mom if you don't mean it." Tears welled in her eyes, but I turned away. By the following week, they were gone. The gleaming cars disappeared from the driveway. The chandelier-lit dinners ended. Craig, I heard later, was working a low-level sales job at a dealership, his charm useless without wealth to back it. Vanessa rented a cramped apartment downtown, her pastel dresses out of place among peeling paint and flickering lights. As for me, I stayed in the house my husband and I had built together. I reopened the garden, filled the rooms with light, and, for the first time in years, I felt at home again. One evening, as I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, the sun setting over the quiet street, I whispered to the fading light. They thought they could erase me, but I'm still here, and I'm free. The storm had passed, and I had survived. The house felt different once Craig and Vanessa were gone. It was quieter. Yes, but not empty. For the first time in years, silence felt like peace, not loneliness. I began my mornings on the porch with a steaming cup of coffee, watching the neighborhood stir awake. Children rode their bikes down the street. A neighbor waved as he walked his dog, and the world no longer felt like it was happening without me. The garden, which had once been a showpiece for Vanessa's parties, became mine again. I planted marigolds and roses, the same flowers my husband had loved. As I knelt in the soil, I felt his presence beside me, as though he were smiling at how the garden had come back to life. Sometimes, I thought about Craig and Vanessa. I heard through the grapevine that Craig was struggling at his new job. No valet attendants, no gala invitations, just long hours and little recognition. Vanessa, I was told, rarely attended social gatherings anymore. Without the glow of wealth, she had become just another face in the crowd. Did I forgive them? The question lingered often. The truth was complicated. I didn't hate them. I didn't wish them harm. But forgiveness? That would take time. What I knew for certain was this: I no longer carried their weight on my shoulders. One Sunday, as I set the table for myself a simple breakfast of toast, scrambled eggs, and fresh strawberries, I realized I wasn't lonely. I was free. Later that day, I visited the small diner again. The waitress recognized me, smiling warmly. "Back again, hon?" "Yes," I said, smiling back. "Back again." We talked about the weather, about the roses in my yard, about the books I'd been reading. Nothing dramatic, just life. And it was enough. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the first fireflies blinked in the garden, I whispered to the quiet air. I survived. I found peace. For the first time in a long time, I believed it. If you had told me a year ago that I would be sitting here, in the same house where I was once made to feel invisible, sipping tea and watching fireflies, I would have laughed, or maybe cried. But life has a way of teaching us what we never thought we needed to learn. I used to believe that sacrifice was the highest form of love, that giving everything away to my husband, to my daughter, to the life we built was the only way to prove my worth. I thought if I was quiet, patient, and giving, I would be valued. I was wrong. Sacrifice without respect becomes servitude. Love without boundaries becomes exploitation. It took being pushed to the edge, being called a burden in my own family, for me to finally see the truth. I was never less because I grew older. My gray hair, my tired hands, my slower steps, none of these made me worthless. They made me human. They made me me. If you're listening now, perhaps with the weight of your own sacrifices heavy on your shoulders, hear me when I say this. You are not invisible. You are not disposable. And you deserve a life where you are not merely tolerated, but cherished. Craig and Vanessa taught me that cruelty can wear a smile. But the world also reminded me through a kind waitress, a quiet library, and the words of my late husband that goodness still exists. So, if you ever find yourself in the shadows, remember, you don't need anyone's permission to step into the light. I thought my story ended when they tried to erase me, but really, it was just the beginning. Because sometimes, the greatest revenge isn't destroying others. It's choosing to live well, to live free, and to live as if you still matter. Because you do. Here I am, an older woman, gray-haired but with a heart lighter than it's been in decades. My story isn't just about revenge. It's about remembering who I am and reclaiming my dignity. Craig and Vanessa chose their path. I choose peace, greeting each day with a smile and a cup of tea in my garden. If you stayed with me through this journey, thank you. Maybe you saw yourself or someone you love here. Remember, it's never too late to stand tall and reclaim your worth. If this story touched you, please like and subscribe for more stories that speak to the heart. I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below to share your thoughts or feelings. Together, we can build a community of healing. The storm has passed. The sun has risen. And tomorrow, I will meet it with peace. Thank you for listening.